Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spill the Tea in 10 with La Libre. Today, we are chatting about practical ways to make your classroom a little bit more proficiency oriented day by day using teeny tiny hacks. And this one is a question that was submitted by a teacher in this group. So I think you're probably going to connect with it very well because I think all of us have this question at one point or another. Ooh, my mic is real far away, so I'm going to make sure real close. Welcome to my new office. I hope you like it. It's a great space. Okay, so if you're new to these chats, my name is Devin and I'm the teacher author behind La Libre Language Learning. I used to teach Spanish and French, and now I get to support you full-time behind the scenes with moments like this to make your classroom a little bit more comprehensible. Now, let's get into this question here. This is a really good one. Melanie's question is, how do I stay in the target language and still have deep discussions in the target language? I'm assuming to also, of course, connect with students, but still keep it comprehensible. I know, right? Juicy. So, don't spill your tea. Let's get into it. This question is so imperative to understand the meaning behind it. In this question, we're really looking for, okay, so our classroom is now the means of communication in the target language, but isn't the point of teaching to make meaningful connections with students? So how are we going to do that if we're using the target language all the time? So I have a few ideas for you and some thoughts about the philosophy of this question and practice in general. Let's get started. Okay, so first thing that you need to know about me is that I am all about connecting with students, whether it's through the target language or in English. I believe strongly that the classroom is 50% academic and 50% social emotional. So if we are to develop the whole human, as is our job as educators, then sometimes you need to put the target language to the side in order to do what you need to do. That's my own opinion for that. It's 90% for a reason. And by the way, 90% target language in today's teaching climate, as many of the teachers in my practical proficiency network remind me of on the daily, you are all teaching in a very different climate right now with post-COVID students who are really struggling with what it means to be in a classroom environment right now. So make sure that your priorities are straight with keeping your classroom functioning as best as you can right now. And if the word 90% makes you want to throw up, there's a reason for that. It's probably too much right now. I will tell you too that I never in the classroom ever used or got to 90%, even though it was a goal of mine for a long time. And that is, by the way, why I believe strongly in the idea of phases of transitioning to proficiency in a way and in a season that works for you. So I'll put a link below this video if you have not yet seen the roadmap to proficiency. There are stages and ways that I recommend that you kind of slowly get towards more and more target language in your classroom every day. It works so much better. Okay, so let's get more into this question a little bit now that you know that I think that connecting with your students is really important. And if you need to do it in English, that's cool. That's great. You're still doing your job as a teacher. And by the way, doing it really well. But some specifics for you is that some conversations absolutely need to happen in the L1. Don't disrespect your students. You will know which ones I'm talking about. For the record, 90%, like this really comes into a management question or those moments in your teaching or your classroom context where you know, like, okay, this conversation really needs to happen in the L1. Maybe something happened at school, maybe something happened in your classroom community, or maybe one student either is having a really hard time or, something happened or somebody crossed the line. You need to have that conversation in English. Do not disrespect your students. Don't disrespect them. What do I mean by that? It means that you can make a clear connection between this is our learning space, and we use the L2 or L3 for students when it's our learning space. But when somebody when something or someone is messing with the learning space in the community, we're going to need to make sure that everybody is on the same page and understand the brevity of this. The gravity of the situation should be brief, but understand the gravity of the situation.
bullying, things like that. So you're like the student who's been bullied, like they would feel majorly disrespected if you tried to make a learning moment out of that, right? Like if you tried to use the target language to explain what happened and why it's so not okay. It's, you know what I mean? So here's how you do this is if you have a very specific moment and time where you only use the L1 to make sure students are on the same page about things that, they're probably not going to need that target language all the time anyways. Maybe you need to talk about something really specific, like, updates for prom committee, things like that. Use that as you're like, okay, it's class bulletin time. Let's talk about 10th graders. I need you over here to talk about prom stuff. Do it real quick. 3 minutes of class, done. And then you move into, okay, now it's class time, and you jump right into your target language routine and you focus on your 90% goals then. Nobody's going to even notice the difference. You can also take students outside for when you need to have L1 discussions one-on-one. That works really well to clearly separate the environment of when we are in class, we use the target language, but if something happens, then outside of class, we're not going to use the target language. That creates a huge association with your class as a target language space. That works really, really well for this. And I would say too, that one of the ways that you can do this is that if you keep in mind that with management, almost 90% of your redirects really are 4 words or less. Things like pay attention, stand up, or wake up, keep writing, things like that. Like those are things that you will repeatedly say over and over again as a teacher. Give me your eyes. Those are things you'll say over and over again as a teacher. Your students should hear those all the time from you in the target language, especially if you're using it with a full classroom environment. A note about this is do not misconstrue this for when it's time to have that talk or have that meeting about any kind of behavior things that you only use English. Because if that's the message that you're purveying, then students will get the message pretty quickly that when important stuff happens, we use English. And when non-important stuff happens, we use French. Guess who's going to tune out? The entire class. So what's the difference? When something really needs to be called to your attention and it's highly individual or highly outrageous and really demands respect and care and a bit of grace and tact, use English. When it's something that you do on the daily, all the time, common, your students should know the rebuke or the redirection, whatever you want to call it, in the target language. That's how you can help to preserve your target language environment and make sure that you're having those deep connections and conversations with them. Okay, so that gets the management side, get you some tips for that. But let's talk about the real heart of this question too, when it comes to communication. And that is, Devin, I want to connect with my students on a real level. How am I going to do that if they're in level 1 or level 2 or beginning of level 3 and there's not a lot of words at their disposal? Oh, I love this question. My very first answer to you is this. Students want to talk about serious stuff. They want to see what the world for what it really is, and you can absolutely do that with simple language. Here's how. First of all, it's not always about input. It's not always about input. Really, your guiding mantra as a level 1 through 3 teacher is show, don't tell, especially when it comes to serious things in the world, serious conversations, or deeply connecting with your students. Show that they are being seen. Show that you understand them, love them, and care about them. Don't tell them that all the time. Like you can do that in actions. You can do that with with various perspectives, with windows and mirrors, by making sure that they have access to the highest quality materials possible that you can get your hands on for the amount of time that you're allotted, right? Don't go crazy. Here's some examples of that. So shameless plug, because you should absolutely get your hands on these, is there's a free resource out there for you that I made that has to do with all this. And if you want more information on this, you can, of course, go to the link that I'm going to post below on this, like Post Malone, that is all about how to teach social justice in level 1 French and level 2 Spanish. The level 1 French resource is free. It's in collaboration with TPT for a grant for Teach for Justice. And this program is a 2-week unit where you use a song and authentic text to teach about immigration rights and racism issues in France, especially talking about immigrants and refugees. And all of this language is cognates and focuses on high frequency verbs. You use the song to present the issues. You also use the song to learn and acquire and use through input a lot of amazing skills and functional chunks that level 1 learners really need. So you can, of course, talk about really intense, highly connecting stuff in your language classes, but you don't need intense, highly emotive, or deeply connective language to do it. You can actually use really simple language. The best artists always do. So I would say that your number one way to do this, my number one takeaway for you is check the quality of your resources. Check the quality of your authentic texts, because the native speakers should be doing the showing and the telling for you, especially when you want to deeply connect with students. They should be the one presenting issues. They should be the ones talking about their perspectives, not you. It is not beneficial for you, and it also will not work in levels 1 through 3. Maybe levels 4 and 5, you can pull this off, but I know you're asking this question because you're struggling to stay comprehensible, like most of us are. It's not your job to be in the front of the room and try to explain to students and make something that's a really complex issue comprehensible by cutting out as many words as you can and simplifying a complex issue, right? Like that's not a good use of your time. And it's also not going to connect with students the way that you want it to. And asking students to learn a lot of complex vocabulary in order to really talk about the things that they want to talk about in their lives is also not going to help, right? What you can do is use really simple resources that go right to the heart of the matter and get your message across and show the world for what it really is, that helps to dive into those important issues that you want to discuss, that helps students express themselves with simpler language, using lots and lots of cognates with the things that are available to them. That's where the magic is. That's really where the magic is. If you would like more information about how to still deeply connect with students in 2 different ways, either if you want to have real discussions with them, and I'm interpreting this 2 ways as, okay, like we need to have like the talks, like we need to talk about what's going on in our classroom and maintain our safe environment, or I want to talk about real things that are happening around the world. I want to really connect with my students and talk about things in their lives. You can do all of those things and stay comprehensible, but you're not going to do it by talking at them. What you're going to need to change is the types of materials that you use and the ways that you expect students to interact with them. There is, if you, many of you watching this have attended Practical and Comprehensible at one point, and there's a full social justice webinar in there for you that I did 2 years ago. So if you attended 2020, you'll be able to find it in there. If you are a Practical Proficiency Network member, you can find this webinar as well. And if you're interested in finding out more information about this and you want to talk more about this topic here, check out that webinar, my friend. I'd be happy to send you the link. Send me a DM. But in the meantime, this has been Spill the Tea with me. And I'm really, really excited that you are here to learn more about how to make proficiency happen little by little, step by step. Every week, 2% better. And I know that your classroom is going to shine, especially in this brand new year. Welcome to 2023 if you're watching this currently. And I'm very grateful for the time that you and I get to spend together. Bye for now. I'll see you next week. Bye.